Today I've got a little cocktail piano improvisation exercise for you guys to have a go at. It's quite an interesting one. It's designed to get you thinking about how you can improvise in the right against relatively complex, relatively quickly changing chords in the left. Just before we start looking at it, I'll give you the usual health warning that I kind of issue at the start of tutorials like this, in that I'm going to assume that you know the basics of chords and scales. So if I talk about a major seventh chord or a pentatonic scale, I'm working on the basis that you know what I'm talking about. If you don't know what I'm talking about, no problem, never fear. I've got loads of resources on those kind of basics that can kind of bring you up to speed. What I'll do is include some links to useful videos in the description for this video, and by all means subscribe to the channel and have a look at some of my older, more basic stuff. You might also find my books useful, How to Really Play the Piano and An Introduction to Cocktail Piano, but I'll talk about those at the end. For now, let's crack on with this exercise. Like most of the improv exercises that I do, this one is based on a short 4-bar loop that you can repeat over and over. Let me play the chords through and then name them so we know what they are. They're quite interesting. Okay, let's name them. F major 7, F diminished 7, which I'm playing with an A flat in the bass there, E minor 7, E flat diminished 7, D minor 7, G7, C major 7. And most of those chords occupy 2 beats in their respective bars, apart from the final chord, that's C major 7, which occupies a whole bar. So let's just count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This being cocktail, we don't have to keep the rhythm as strict as that, but for now I'm just going to keep that rhythm fairly tight so you can see how the progression is structured. One more time through that, we've got F major 7, F diminished 7, E minor 7, E flat diminished 7, D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Now when we improvise with that sequence, what we're mainly going to be doing is playing the chords in the left hand like this. So maybe the first thing it would be useful for you to do, if you're not super confident with chords, is just master that left hand. Let me play it again. F major 7, F diminished 7, E minor 7, E flat diminished 7, D minor 7, G7, C major 7. Yeah? I should say, if you're playing on an acoustic piano, and particularly an older acoustic piano, you might need to lift some of these notes out of the left-hand chords, okay? So you might want to, for example, this final C major 7 chord, you might want to play it as a shell chord, okay? Just playing the root and the 7th. That's because on older pianos especially, once you get below middle C, playing chunky chords can result in a fairly muddy sound, yeah? On any piano it's going to be muddy if you play it down here, yeah, but on acoustic pianos especially, sometimes that sound gets muddy. So just play around with that left hand and get it so it's sounding good and you're confident with it. Okay, there we go. Just one last time for you there. There we go. So let's think about how we can improvise over that progression. What I'm going to do now is just play a simple melodic improvisation in the right, and I want you to watch and just see if you can work out what I'm doing. Okay, now what you might have spotted there is that I was exclusively using the notes of C major pentatonic, the C major pentatonic scale, okay? immediately you might stop and say, hold on, shouldn't we be using F pentatonic? Because our first chord there is F major 7. Great question, but no, we shouldn't, because the progression, we could, but C major pentatonic is the more natural and obvious one to use here, because the progression, although it starts on an F chord, is actually in C major. Yeah, this is something to watch out for. Most progressions, most songs start and finish on the tonic chord of their key. So most progressions in C start on a chord of C and finish on a chord of C. Most songs in C start on a chord of C and finish on a chord of C. But there are a minority of songs, a minority of progressions that don't start on their tonic chord. And if it's a major progression and it's not starting on its tonic chord, there's a really good chance that what it will actually do is start on the number 4 chord in the key of C, that's F. And that's what's happening here, yeah? So we've got that F chord working its way down to the tonic chord, which is C. And the big clue is that the chord immediately before C is G7, which is the dominant chord, which leads us naturally to C. Okay, and we have that sense of resolution at the end. So, therefore, C pentatonic is the scale that's going to be that's going to make most sense in the first instance as the basis of improvisation. Now, if you know a little bit about pentatonic scales, you'll know that they're really handy, because you can play the pentatonic in the right over pretty much any chord progression in its relevant key in the left, and it will sound pretty cool. It will usually fit, and that's even true against clashes. Yeah, so if you've got that E flat diminished chord, then playing the notes of the pentatonic scale in the right, even with that sort of apparent clash there between the F sharp and the G, is not a problem. It kind of fits the jazzy feel of the genre, okay? So that's not a problem at all. So, stage 1, play your chord progression in the left and improvise over it in the right using the pentatonic. If you're not entirely confident at first, then the thing to do, as always, you might have heard me talk about this before, is to limit the number of notes you play. So rather than using the whole pentatonic scale over 2 or 3 octaves or whatever, just play 3 notes, maybe C, D and E, or G, A and C, and just use those as the basis of an improvisation, like this. And then move out and begin to use more of the notes of the pentatonic scale and get a little bit adventurous, maybe play 2 notes at a time or something. Okay, as I say, as I always say, in fact, experiment and play around. Okay, that is where that's when the magic happens, when you sit down and play this sort of thing for ages and ages. That's, by the way, that's why loops are so useful, because once you get them in your head, you can kind of switch off worrying about which chord is next and focus on the pure business of improvisation. If you're trying to practice improvisation over a song, you can get very stuck in sort of, oh, hold on, the middle section's coming up, and what chord's next, and so on and so forth. Whereas if it's a simple repeating loop, you know, you can kind of just switch off to it and get that get the flow going. Okay, really get that improvisational flow going. So once you've got it down with the pentatonic, begin to expand. You can maybe start to use the whole major scale, and that's cool because that gives us access to the B in the key of C. The major 7th, the 7th note of the scale, is a really essential kind of sound in cocktail. Yeah, let's have a go at that, just using the whole of the C major scale. And then, have a go at that and build out, maybe introduce some crush notes and some blue notes. Okay, we're getting into a kind of purer jazz there. And as you can see, I'm beginning to put some of those effects and techniques together, playing a couple of notes at a time, beginning to play chords. That's maybe the next thing you could do. As I say, just master that kind of left hand. You'll get lost occasionally, or play the wrong chord occasionally. That happens to me. Nearly happened to me just then. Don't worry too much about that, but try to get those chords right and kind of get them mindless, and let your right hand explore based on the chords and the scales and so on. Okay, there we go. Stop listening to me and go and have a go at that, okay? As I said at the start, I will just give a quick plug for my 2 books. How to Really Play the Piano, you will find pretty cool. If you're really new to this kind of thing and you're just learning about improvisation, and you want to know about how different chords work and so on and so forth, you need to know a little bit about how to read music. Yeah, none of it's desperately difficult, but you need to kind of know for that. And then there's my book, An Introduction to Cocktail Piano, which is all about this style, about cocktail. It is ebook only. How to Really is a print edition, as you can see, and a digital edition, and An Introduction to Cocktail is PDF only. Just a quick plug for my Patreon campaign, my crowdfunding campaign, www.patreon.com/Bill Hilton. Please go and check that out. If you can support it, that would be ace, even if it's only kind of just $1 a video or something. It frees up the time to help me make more of these things. And yeah, there we go. So as usual, have a go at that stuff. Let me know how you get on. Any questions or comments or anything like that, just ping me. Well, the easiest way to do it is to put a comment underneath the relevant video. Okay, there we go for another week. Should have a couple more tutorials this month. I'm going to go away and start planning those right now. I'll see you soon.